Stop the share. There we are. Okay, so here is the camera, the Thornton Pickard Rubyette. I'll lift the lens hood there so that you can see it. It's a single lens reflex camera, very like a Rolleiflex or a Rolleicord or an Icaflex or a whatever similar kind of cameras. It was released in 1935, and it was an attempt to compete with the Rolleiflex and with the Rolleicord in particular. Being Thornton Pickard, it's essentially a wooden camera covered in leather with a metal hood. So it's really the smallest version of the reflex cameras that they made, and it was available with a whole range of lenses. This one happens to have a Dalmayer anastigmat with a curious focal length of 4 1/8 inches, which is very precise. It has a focal plane shutter, which runs very like the standard Thornton Pickard reflex. So you wind it up on the side and you press the button there. First pressure takes the mirror out of the way. Second pressure fires the shutter. You've got some rise and fall here on the front. Just a limited amount of rise and fall, but it is there. And you do have a sports finder. There we are. So there is a sports finder on the top. If you can see, that's a better angle, isn't it? So you can see the sports finder there. There's no facility for a mirror in the top, which there are in some reflex cameras. So there's no mirror in the top, so you can look through and actually see the image on the ground glass. Sorry. Oh, like that, yeah. That's right, very similar to that. It's just a bit heavier, I think, than a Micropress, a Microflex. One of the features of the camera was the quick release back. So on the back here, it's a bit awkward to hold, but you just flick that lever and the whole of the plate comes out, and you can very quickly fit another one in there, which I won't do because it's too tricky. But it took 3.5, 2.5 plates or roll films in a film pack, or it had a roll film holder. So 3.5, 2.5, but only in portrait format. So you had to hold it. It was really intended for portrait use. The next version up, the Rubyette 2, had a revolving back, so that you could take either landscape or portrait without having to hold the camera on its side. And the Rubyette 3 was a 3.25 square camera, so really for lantern slides or similar. It was priced at the time, I'll have to look at my little crib sheet here, in 1937, the Rubyette was available from £13, 2 shillings and sixpence, so £13, 2 and 6 for a Rubyette. At that same time, you would pay £20 and 10 shillings for an Icaflex. If you wanted a Rolleicord, you'd have to pay £14. And if you wanted a Rolleiflex with a Tessar, it would be about £25. So at £13, it was quite competitively priced. But of course, at that time, and as is typical with many British cameras, it was just a little bit too late. It was based on the technology of the sort of early 1900s, the reflex cameras that are around there that were used for press. And they were trying to get into the sort of advanced amateur market, but it didn't really compete with the sophistication of things like the Rolleiflex. And as I say, although it was launched in 1935, its production finished 1938. It didn't come out after the Second World War. Of course, Thornton Pickard had gone into administration by then, but so it had a relatively short life. The Rubyette 1 is relatively easy to find. The Rubyette 2 is harder to find. The Rubyette 3, the 3.25 square, I've never actually seen one of those. I do have I'll try and hold them both, a Rubyette 2. There it is. It's a very similar camera, just a little bit bigger because it's essentially the same camera but with a revolving back. So quite a nice camera. It was available with a 2.9 Pentac. If you really wanted to go berserk, you could fit some very fast big lenses to this camera. And I have a little notebook that came with this one, which shows it was used both in it was used in a studio. So clearly it had use because of its portrait format. It was particularly suited to studio use, and that was in 1950. So although the camera was by then 20 odd years old, it was still being used. So there we are, the Thornton Pickard Rubyette. Interesting little camera.
That's fantastic, David. Was it was it available in any other finishes, or was it just was like a tropical model or lizard skin? Or
oh no, nothing like that. No. All you got was the standard black finish, black leather finish.
Yeah.
There is one on the internet. If you search, I could find it for you. There's one that's all the metalwork has been gold plated for some reason, and the metalwork on the side. I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but yeah, they're just a standard black finish, no tropical versions.
Right.
So I mean, it was only around for 3 years. Richard, you've got a question.
Yeah, what's the focusing like, David?
The focusing is the standard reflex kind of a focusing bellows.
How bright
Pardon? Oh, the image is pretty good actually. It's not bad. And on top of your £13, you could buy a Stevens focusing screen here.
Right.
Which is, there we are. I can show it to you. Can you see? It's a combination of the ground glass focusing screen and a condenser lens. You could buy that for £1.10 shillings.
Right.
But if you wanted a brighter, more evenly illuminated image, you could take out your standard focusing screen and you could put your Stevens focusing screen in instead. That was, as I said, the camera was £13 and you paid £1.10
Right.
just for that.
Now that's the same way the Icoflex worked with the same sort of screen, but they were about 5 times that price.
Oh, right. Well, there you go, you see.
I'm
sure we did it first, but there you go. There is a patent. The patent is actually on the screen. I can't tell the year. 378270. Another thing that's patented, which is rather odd, is the handle on the side, which is the kind of sort of sprung handle that you see on all kinds of suitcases and tool kits, all kinds. That handle is actually patented, not by Thornton Pickard, but they chose to use it on this camera. It's a strange thing because you can hardly get your finger in there. It's totally impractical, but like many things, they decided they needed a handle and that's the one they chose. So there we are, Rubyette, 1935 to 1938. Interesting camera.